against peace. As opposed to the authorities of Croatia and Slovenia and the Muslim authorities of Bosnia and Herzegovina that carried out an armed secession, and as opposed to their instigators, aiders and abettors from Germany, Austria, the Vatican, the European Community, and later on the USA and NATO, the Serb people and the Serb leadership, and I personally made every effort to preserve the Yugoslav community. In this way, we were on the side of the law, whereas the destroyers of Yugoslavia were flagrantly violating national and international law. They were invoking the right to self-determination, but this was only a smokescreen, and they were trying to hide their efforts involved in unlawful secession, because the Yugoslav peoples and Yugoslav republics did not have the right to one-sided secession according to the Constitution of Yugoslavia and according to the constitutions of those republics and in accordance with international law. In particular, they did not have the right to achieve this objective by killing other people and breaking up the state. Article 5 of the Constitution of Yugoslavia, which was in force then, was a constitution that was adopted in 1974.
And it states, the territory of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia is a unified territory and is composed of the territories of the Socialist Republics. The borders of the SFRY cannot be changed without the agreement of all the republic and autonomous provinces. It follows from this unambiguously that no single republic or nation within the SFRY, as explicitly stated in the Constitution, had the right to secede from the SFRY one-sidedly. This was possible only on the basis of agreement, the agreement of all. Bearing this in mind, and bearing in mind the desire expressed in Slovenia and Croatia and later on in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Macedonia to leave the Yugoslav Federation, and in an attempt to avoid any kind of conflict, the Serbian side, as confirmed by witness Borislav Jovic, the president of the presidency of Yugoslavia and later on the member of the presidency, the Serbian side, beginning in August 1991, tried to convince the representatives of the other republics in the federal bodies to adopt a law which would regulate this appropriately. As Jovic said in his book, which was quoted here, they were determined to follow this through, even though at the cost of incidents and conflicts. Let me remind you from Tudjman's great speech, which was quoted here, when he said there would have been no war had Croatia not wanted it. Without such a war, no one would have been able to expel 500,000 Serbs from territories which they had inhabited for centuries, and who at the time of Croatian secession were not asking for a state but only for autonomy, and who up to that point, according to the Croatian constitution, were a constituent people in Croatia, because Croatia had been defined as a state of the Croatian people, the Serbian people, and others, and this was later deleted. When bearing in mind the provisions quoted from the Constitution, the Yugoslav republics of Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Slovenia declared their independence and their secession in violation of the Constitution. In view of the fact that the secession was conducted by armed force, this was illegal, violent, armed secession, and illegal armed violent secession, leading to tens of thousands of people killed, leading to crimes, is a crime under international law. Just as aiding and abetting this is a crime, and this was done by others. These were the same ones who are behind this illegal court, and they are trying to gain amnesty for themselves and to shift the blame onto the actual victims. The secession of the former Yugoslav republics in the way it was carried out was not permissible. This situation as regards secession, the secession of the former Yugoslav republics, is confirmed explicitly by Antonio Cassese, the former president of this institution, in a monograph that he wrote dedicated to the right of peoples to self-determination, Cambridge University Press, 1995. On pages 269 and 270, he points out that the Yugoslav republics did not have the right to self-determination either under international law or under Yugoslav internal law. Cassese says on the pages I mentioned the following: as in the case of the 12 Soviet republics, under international law, the 6 Yugoslav republics did not have the right to external self-determination. This right was not provided for in the Yugoslav constitution. However, unlike the Soviet constitution, the Yugoslav constitution did not provide for the secession of the 6 republics making up Yugoslavia, and he quotes the constitution of Yugoslavia. Therefore, as this illegal prosecution in a moment of inattention quoted in some paragraphs of the so-called Kosovo indictment, paragraphs 79 and 80, as to who caused the war in the former Yugoslavia, the former president of this court, in the same book on page 273, after establishing the illegality of the secession, draws an identical conclusion, identical to the one that the prosecution inadvertently slipped into these paragraphs. He says it is well known that Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as several former Soviet republics, that in these republics it was secession that revived the ancient hatreds and led to bloodshed. That it is generally known, this is correct. Anyone who wishes to and who has a minimum of honesty has to accept this as true. Those who do not have a minimum of honesty can permit themselves to distort generally known facts and transform them into their opposite. But inadvertently, from time to time, the truth slips out even from them. It must not be forgotten that to have the truth as one's ally is a guarantee, sooner or later, of victory. Having the truth opposing you is a certain path to a humiliating defeat. Everything I'm saying is true about the bloody breakup of Yugoslavia, an internationally recognized state which both under law and according to morality and historical facts, and what is most important, the real interests and well-being of its citizens, had the right to survive. Time does not permit me to set out some indispensable facts and conclusions. I hope you will not oppose, in the case of Kosovo, accepting the 7 white books of Yugoslavia which are in evidence, and all the documentation which has been submitted to the regular and legal International Court of Justice in The Hague,